zone sometimes, and then you're just working and grinding, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh snap, it's already time. So that is kind of what's happened. Selena, hey girl, hey Selena. Do you say Selena or do you say Selena? Let me know, because a lot of people be like, hey Selena, and I'm like, that's not how you say it, but whatever. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Sis, is it Sistasi? Hello, hello. Live la vida loca. Bree, hey Bree. Hey guys, welcome, welcome. Okay, let me make sure I am all set up here on YouTube. Okay, welcome to my Friday Love Live. Oh my gosh, it's Friday. We are in a new season. We are getting ready for the weekend. It is the afternoon. Hello, hello. You guys are coming through. This must be a really good time. And I'm happy, but it's also like bittersweet because I don't know. Sister C. Okay, my bad. My bad. Sister C. How are you? Girl, I didn't say your name all wrong. I'm so sorry. My bad. All love. Please know that it was all love. No offense. um, I'm kind of like, it's kind of like bittersweet because I'm like, oh, this is like a really good time to show up because it works for me and my schedule. But because of the whole transition of like picking up kids for school and the baby's nap schedule is changing again, I don't know. I don't know if I'll be able to do lives during the week anymore. Like unless it's like an evening live. Would you guys be okay for an evening live? Let me know, because if you guys could like kick it with me maybe for like an hour sometime during the week, at nighttime, like after 8, that might work. But like during the daytime, I just don't know if it's gonna work anymore because my nanny, she is elevating to a new ground. She is getting a new job, and that is wonderful for her, but it is very detrimental to me because now I have to rearrange everything. But anyways, we're not here to talk about that, okay? We're here to talk about the new news that has happened in the relationship headlines. Okay, so for those of you guys who don't even know who I am, let me go ahead and reintroduce myself. My name is Selina Almodovar. I'm a Christian relationship author and coach. And what I do in the internet world is I want to encourage, empower, and show women of faith that they can use their faith to trust in God, and God is going to help them create the relationship and find the man that they have been praying for. So I'm here to teach you how to date, how to love, how to find love, and also how to lean on God for giving, for him to bless you with all of the things that your heart desires. And so I like to, every week or so, I like to take the headlines that we see in the modern dating world, and I like to just not only say like, oh, this is relationship gossip, this is something Wendy Williams would cover. No, I don't want to say it like that. I just want to use this topic and I want to show you God through that topic, and then I want to pull out what can you learn from this experience that other people are going through to help you in your love life. And so today I think this is a very, very good topic that I have here. I had a picture. Let me see if I can pull up the picture on Instagram. Here we go. So these people, raise your hand or show me in the comments if you follow the show Love is Blind. It is a Netflix show. It is a show where people have never met each other. They enter into these pods, is what they call them, which is just like these little rooms, like little rooms with a table and snacks and drinks or whatever. And they do not know, they do not see the person that they are on a speed dating. They're like in this speed dating round. Okay, so they don't know who they're talking to. They never seen the people on the other side of the wall, right? And then they basically have, I don't know, a week or 2 weeks to figure out if love is blind, if they can find love in a person whom they've never met before. And so after they get out of the pod rounds, some people get engaged, and if they decide to get engaged, then Netflix kind of moves them into a wedding. Like within a 3-week span, they meet the parents, they look at their living conditions, they plan a wedding, and then they ultimately get married, and then they're at the altar. And then some people are like, I do, they get married. Some people are like, I do, I don't, and you're like, oh no. And then and then the other time they're just they fizzle out. So this is kind of the gist of the show. This particular couple, the one that I have on Instagram, for YouTube, I will post the link to show you guys kind of the preview of what Love is Blind is. But for this particular couple, Jarrette Jones and Iyanna, I think it's Iyanna, not Iyanna. Iyanna McNeely. These people, this is a Chicago based season. So everything was done in Chicago. So these people, they found love. Okay. They decided to get married. They got married. And they've been married for a year. And I follow both of them because my husband and I, we really, this was the one, the one real reality TV show that we watched together. So I follow both of these couple. And from the looks of it, like just, going through my Instagram stuff, it looked like they were good. It looked like they had a solid relationship. They took a lot of photo shoots, like naturally, because they came from a TV show. There's a lot of branding that's going on. There's a lot of influencer, career come ups that is happening within them, but they looked good. It didn't look like anything was bad. Come to find out, they celebrated their 1 year anniversary this past June. Okay. But then in August this year, today, like yesterday, probably 2 days ago, I think it was yesterday, they decided that they were going to separate and they were going to move the procedures of getting divorced. Okay. And what was the reasoning? What was their blanket statement that they said? It said, and I quote, their lives are going in different directions. They don't regret a thing. Of course you wouldn't regret a thing. You just had this whole experience. It was amazing. And so I want to really talk about that. I really want to take like at least 20 minutes or so, and then I'll get into some questions and answers if you guys have any. But I really want to talk about like people get in love. They fall in love, whether love was blind, whether love had bifocals on. Okay, however you found love, you found it. And they get married. And then after such a short period of time, they decide to get divorced. And I want to talk to you guys about this because I know for a lot of women out there, the end goal is to get married. Okay. But the marriage doesn't mean anything. The end goal doesn't mean anything if you don't know how to sustain that marriage. Can I talk to somebody out here about this? Because a lot of people, their sights are set on, I want to get married. I want to find a husband. But if you don't know what goes on in that, okay, if you don't know what happens in that relationship, if you don't know how to maintain that marriage, then you're going to get divorced. And nobody at least personally to me, I don't believe people are saying, I want to get married just to get divorced. Like, I feel like there's some hint of faith in everyone who believes that marriage is the move for them to make. I believe that they're saying, I want to get married and this is going to become a lifelong partner, right? But if you're going to just get divorced so fast, then what happened to that lifelong longevity of the relationship? You know what I'm saying? So I want to talk to you guys about that. I want to talk about getting married, why you would choose to do it. I want to talk about what are you currently doing to prepare for it. Okay. And I want to talk about what are you going to do afterwards to maintain it. Okay. Now, just using this couple as an example, I don't know their business. I'm not feeding into, I'm not going to dig deep into TMZ or whatever to try to figure out what exactly happened. But I do know from watching the show, there was a lot of red flags. For me as a relationship coach, like there was a lot of red flags. I was very surprised that they got married in the first place. And here are a few red flags that I peeped. If you've seen the show, like I know Bree, you said you watched it. If you guys have seen the show, like let me know, did you notice these red flags as well? Or is this like new news to you? Okay, so flag number one, Jarrette had his heart on another woman to begin with. Her name was Mal. She was a Latina. How do I remember her? Because I'm a Latina. So I was like, "Oh, I'm rooting for you, Mal. I'm rooting for you." She didn't get anybody. She didn't get married. It doesn't matter. But he had his eyes set on her first. Now he had the two women that he was juggling with. He was like, "I love them both differently, but Mal moves me more." Okay. So he went and he proposed to Mal, and Mal was like, I no, There's another person who was Sal, who she ended up walking away with, out of the pod part of the show. And she was like, there's someone else that I'm feeling more. So I'm not gonna do it. This really crushed Jarrette. Okay. Jarrette went in there thinking, I'm going to marry Mal. My heart is set on Mal. Even though I had feelings for Iyanna, even though Iyanna like really made me feel good and wholesome and whole, you know, the fire and the passion that I want to have for the rest of my life rested in Mal. Okay. And so when Mal said, no, I'm not going to marry, I don't want to get engaged to you, that messed up Jarrette a lot. Like they showed him crying, they showed him just completely like sprawled out on the couch. Like it looked like he had a full-blown breakup. Okay, so from there he's like, wait a minute, now all of a sudden he remembers the backup. He remembers Iyanna or Iyanna. Please, can somebody tell me how you pronounce her name? I should have looked it up. He remembers her and he's like, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna propose to her. Iyanna from day one was like, Jarrette is my number one. I really like him. I hope he says yes to me. That is the person that I want to be with. So when he finally approached her and was like, I want to marry you, she's ecstatic. She's like, yes, of course. This is it. This is what I've been praying for. This is what I wanted. I chose you. You were my number one. I'm glad we finally get it. But then Jarrette was like, I'm going to be very honest with you. I have feelings for someone else. I proposed to someone else. And she said no. So this was a really big conflict during the season of the Love is Blind season 2, because Iyanna was like, so I'm your backup. You know, like she already came into the relationship feeling insecure. Red flag number 1. Okay. She was very insecure because she felt like she wasn't good enough to be his number 1. Okay. So they're already bringing that into their engagement season, into their marriage season. Okay. So let me just stop right there and just say, if you are going to move forward with somebody and be serious with someone, number 1, you better be very secure in who you are and in him and in that person choosing you. Okay. Regardless of how they came to that choice, you need to be okay with how they came up with that choice. And you need to feel secure in who you are, knowing that you're worthy of being chosen. Because if you're not feeling that, then you're going to carry that insecurity everywhere you go, with anyone he meets, with everyone you meet. And it's never going to be a whole, healthy marriage. I always tell people, all of my clients, I say, I go back to the book of Genesis. I believe it's Genesis chapter 2, verses 35. It's the last verse of chapter 2. And he says, they were together, they were naked and unashamed. Sorry, Siri. They were naked and they were unashamed. And so that is the goal of marriage. Okay. Marriage did not come from the government courts. Marriage did not come from man. Marriage came from God before sin. It came before the fall, before all of that stuff happened with the snake and the forbidden fruit and all of this stuff, the sword and the fire and the cherubims protected. Like before all of that happened, God made marriage happen. He created marriage. And so they were naked, they were unashamed. But in this situation, she was ashamed because she felt like he didn't really like me at first. I'm just the backup plan because he doesn't want to leave out of here alone. So she's already feeling shame. She's already bringing shame into the relationship. Number 2, this whole time that they're getting to know each other, he is a very extroverted person. She is a very introverted person. Okay. He would always go out kicking it and go to clubs. And he was a club promoter. He was an event promoter. You can see it in his Instagram. Nothing has changed. That's not a bad thing about this person. Like that's who he is. And he did not hide it for 1 second. He did not hide this. However, she is a very introverted person. She is somebody who wants to stay at home. She is a homebody. She is a cuddle person. She said herself, she had a lot of trauma growing up. She had a lot of things that she was getting through. And so going around big crowds and big places is not really her thing. Understandable. She never hid this from him. Okay. There were 2 people who have feelings for each other, who express differences in lifestyles, right? And I believe in their 1 year of marriage, they were trying to work this out. They were trying to compromise, because that is what you do. If you feel that somebody is worth fighting for, then you kind of change some of your ways. You kind of compromise some things. You go a little bit this way and they go a little bit that way, so that way you guys can meet in the middle and start to create your own sense of lifestyle. However, it appears through their announcement of getting divorced that didn't always work. I feel like he was staying at home, but then after he would give her time alone at home, he would be like, okay, well, now I'm going to go out. And I feel like she was not going out as much as he wanted her to go out. Because who knows how much he was going out. Like, maybe she was like, okay, a weekend here is fine, a weekend there is fine, but every single day, like on a Wednesday, really, bro, on a Tuesday, you want me to go out and kick it? Like, I'm just not going to do that, you know? And so I could see how that could affect a relationship, especially because you're already feeling some kind of way about his choices and preferences. Now, all of a sudden, you guys are having two separate worlds. Now, listen, I was in a relationship one time where we literally lived in two separate worlds. He had his friends, I had my friends. He went to his things, I went to my things. How did we even make it to 5 years? Is because we stayed at home together. That was our world, that was our sanctuary. But I'm going to tell you what, that is not enough. You guys don't live in a bubble. You guys have to do life together. So if you're serious about somebody and you want to start a relationship and you want that relationship to go places, then you have to practice having life together, not just being at home, not just saying, oh, I'm going to go to sleep here, I'm going to eat here, I'm going to dwell here, and my person is here, and so therefore this is my most favorite place in the whole wide world. No, because life isn't like that. Like, we're not living in a quarantine for the rest of our lives. Like, that was a one-time thing, and I'm sure she was having a blast in that thing, because she was like, I get to stay home with my husband all this time, and that's great because now there's no pressure for me to have to step out of my comfort zone, right? But if you're going to be with somebody who is an extrovert, you're going to have to get out of your comfort zone, right? And vice versa. And so, like I said, if you're going to be in a relationship with somebody and they're completely, vastly different than you, then you have to learn, or you have to figure out if living life beyond your comfort zone is going to be comfortable for you for the rest of your life. Okay? Because it might not be. And if it's not, then please don't get married. Okay? Please don't get married, because that might not be for you. Okay? Now, I recently did a video on dating and social anxiety. And what I was saying in there is that sometimes people feel mentally exhausted and overstimulated when they have to go out. Okay. And if you want to try to find a relationship, like, yes, I'm telling you again, you're going to have to push yourself out a little out of your comfort zone. You're going to have to step out and say hi to people. At the very least, holiday season, where you have to go out and spend time with family and his family, you know, at the very least, when you guys have children. Like, let's think long term here as a marriage, because marriage is supposed to be long term. Let's think, if you guys have family and kids, you can't keep your kids inside all day. Like, they have to explore the world as well. And if you feel some kind of way about that, then marriage is probably not the best thing for you to dive into in this particular season. And so for her, I think that was another strike. I think that was another red flag, is that the two lifestyles did not work together. They did not carry well. The other thing, the last thing that I want to say that I noticed was a red flag in this particular relationship, that you could probably take away when you have your relationship or in your future relationships, is that the way they handle conflict. The way they handle conflict, okay? How you handle conflict between a boyfriend and a girlfriend, it should be vastly different compared to how you handle conflict as a husband and wife. What do I mean by that? Okay, what do I mean by that? Boyfriend and girlfriend, they're still trying to figure out their communication. They're still trying to figure out whether they like you or not enough to fight for this. You know, you could be dating someone and you could be like, you're not worth it, so I'm not even going to bother trying to talk to you. I'm going to put my phone on do not disturb, and I'm going to go to bed, or I'm going to take care of myself, or I'm going to go out and do my own thing, and I will handle you in the morning. Okay. As a husband and wife, you should not do that. I know there's people out there that do, but you should not do that. Why? Because you guys made a commitment to each other. You guys made a vow to each other, not just to each other, but to God, that you were going to love this person, that you were going to honor this person, that you were going to respect this person. And so how you handle conflict is going to play a major role in those three vows: love, honor, respect. All these things that you said you were going to uphold at your wedding when you decided to get married. Okay. So during this season, when this couple would get into a conflict, the way they handled the conflict was Iyanna, I believe, was shut down, and Jarrette would kind of just shrug it off and walk away. Okay. That's not how you handle conflict when you get married. Okay. Please understand, choosing divorce is the easy way out. When you choose marriage, you're choosing a lifelong relationship to love this person. You're choosing to love this person, even when they get a little messy, even when things don't go your way, even when you're tired and you're frustrated and you don't want to talk about the thing that's bothering you for the rest of the night. But I'm going to tell you what, you have to choose to love this person. And sometimes loving them means you're going to sit down and you're going to talk until you find peace, right? You're going to sit down and you're going to talk because you want things to make it out on the other end. I honestly think that, yes, there are reasons for people to get divorced. Absolutely. The Bible gives us ways in which it is okay for you to get a divorce. If there's an adultery that's committed, if there is an addiction, if somebody is practicing an idolatry beyond God, if they're addicted to something else, then yes, grounds for divorce. If if your spouse is pulling you further away from God and forcing you to not, practice your faith, grounds for divorce. You know what I'm saying? Like, these are things that are like, yes, totally acceptable. But for you to say that I no longer have it in me to figure us out after a year, I'm going to give up on you because you must not be the person. You must not be for me. So I'm going to give up on you. You're not who I thought you were. So I'm going to give up on you. The relationship is not going the way I thought it would. So I'm going to give up on you. To me personally, I feel like it's a cop out, guys. I feel like it's a cop out. I feel like it's a cop out because you have to understand this, okay? Getting married is not an easy thing. Getting married requires some steps. Getting married has some hoops for you to jump through. What do I mean by that? Even at the very least, like, say you're not going to get a fancy dress, you're not going to go on a big honeymoon, you're not going to plan this big extravagant wedding, but the simple fact that you have to make appointments to go to court, you have to have a marriage license, you have to sign your name, like, you have steps. Like, these things don't just happen, in a single afternoon. Like, you are considering taking this action in your head. So it's not an easy process. And then say you do want the wedding, you got years or months and a lot of money and a lot of people who are influencing you making this a big thing in your life. This is not an easy thing. Marriage is not an easy thing to get into. So as you're contemplating all of those things, I don't care if it was 3 weeks on a TV show, I don't care if it's 3 years because you guys wanted to save the right money. It requires you to sit in the thought process of, am I going to marry this person? Do I want to be with this person for the rest of my life? Am I choosing to love this person? Is this the person that God has for me? Maybe they weren't reaching out to God. That's one of the number one things that I tell you as a relationship coach who is a Christian, is that God is going to lead you into the open doors and into the closed ones. So if you're reaching out to God and you're seeking God and you're saying, God, is this the person for me? Then God will continuously give you confirmation, or he's going to continuously close doors. But I will tell you what, if that is what you're doing, if you're seeking God, if you're praying God and you're wondering, like, am I making the right move? Am I supposed to get married? Is this the person for me? And you are not hearing anything from God that's like in a negative response, and if all the doors remain open, and to the day you are walking down the aisle, you're like, God, stop it, speak now, forever hold your peace, and you are left with peace, then no matter what man does, let them not separate what God has brought together, because marriage is a sacred thing. Like I said, it happened before the fall, it happened before sin ever entered into the presence. And so, for somebody to say, oh, our lives are not growing together the way we thought it would, therefore we're going to break up, to me, it's a cop out, because your life will always change. You will always be evolving. You're always going to become a different person. I am not the same woman that I was 10 years ago when I married my husband. The thoughts that I had, the beliefs that I had, my prayers were different. The person that what I liked to do, what I like to do for fun, my friends, my circle of influence, my career goals, everything was different. And the same applies to my husband. Okay. So for us to say, oh, our lives are changing. Oh, this person is changing. They're not who I thought they were. They're not the person I once married. You're right. You're going to change. Your marriage is going to change. But your commitment, your vow to God and to your spouse to love, honor, respect. Okay, that commitment is what needs to be grounded and solidified. That commitment is what needs to be cemented, because it's from that commitment that you are continuously going to say, yes, I agree to be a part of the learning process of how to love you for the rest of your life. Yes, I agree that we are going to work it out, and we're going to figure it out, and we're going to learn to keep God in the center, and we're going to learn to keep going back to the center no matter what, because that is what we committed to. A lot of people are showing up at the altar with empty promises, with empty commitments, with empty intentions of what marriage should be, because number one, they don't know what marriage is. And number two, they don't know how to handle it when it's there. And number three, they don't know how to maintain it once they have it. Andy said, I love you. Keep speaking. Marriages are so close to my heart. I also think people give up too easily. It's so true. They give up too easily because I feel like a lot of people don't understand marriage in the first place. They don't understand marriage in the first place. A lot of people think that it is just a commitment, that it is just a lifelong partnership with somebody that they like, somebody that they could grow old with. But marriage is so much stronger than that. Marriage is the seeds of something new, of a roots, of a legacy, of a future, of an assignment that God is calling us to do. Okay. My marriage is not just because of me and my husband. My marriage is because of whatever happens in my children's lives and their children's lives. And it is a plan that God has from way beyond my marriage ever even was formed. Okay. So that God's plan can be continued and carried out. Okay. And if people don't understand the value, if they don't appreciate the value of what that mission is, what God's plan is for marriage and for family and for, dare I say, love, okay? If they don't understand that, if they see it as just this surface based, oh, it's part of the court process, or oh, marriage is dead because everybody gets divorced anyways, and it doesn't matter, if they're not treating you right, if they're not good. A lot of people give up because they set up these false expectations. What exactly is marriage? I told you, the commitment. But a lot of people are like, well, if he doesn't love me the right way, then I'm going to divorce him. And well, if he doesn't treat me the right way, then I'm going to divorce him. They set it up as like this test of like, if they're not doing A, B, C, this, that, and the third, then I'm just going to find it in someone else. Well, sister, why didn't you do that when you were dating? Why didn't you find that person before you said I do? Like, why would you choose to go through all of this and just assume that it was a test? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's, let me hear your thoughts. Okay. Let me hear your thoughts. I feel like, why are you going to get married? Why are you going to get married? That's the number one question that you have to ask yourself. Why are you going to get married? Why do you want to get married? Do you know what marriage is? Okay. Do you know what it is? That's like me saying, I want a house. Okay. Let me paint a little picture for you. That's like me saying, I want a house. I want a house next to the beach. And I want a house that I could do yoga outside on the beach. And I want a house, where it's nice and the weather's nice and the sun is shining and it's glass walls and it's just modern looking and it's off the coast and it's beautiful and there's flowers everywhere. I want this house, right? And you're telling everybody in their mom, I want a house. I want a house. I want to be in this house. And then you finally get the house. God finally hears your prayer. He finally is like, okay, here's the house. Right. And you're like, this is wonderful. But now all of a sudden you can't afford the house because you didn't learn while you were a renter. You did not learn how to save your money to afford the house, right? You didn't learn what it took to be a homeowner. You only were like, I just want a house. I just want a house. But you didn't learn how to become a homeowner. So now you are a homeowner and now you can't afford your mortgage, right? Or there's a huge storm that passed and now you got water leaking through your house and you're like, oh, dang, I don't know how to fix my house. My house is not serving me the way I thought it would. All of the time I wanted this house, but now it's not serving me. Now there's water everywhere and I don't want this house anymore. I'm going to sell it because you don't know how to maintain the house now, right? You're living in this house and it's no longer bringing you joy the day you signed the paperwork to own the house. So now you're like, this house is soggy and wet and now my walls are getting stained and now my glass is broken and now the flood is coming in and now all of a sudden I can't do yoga outside on the coast anymore because it's just not fitting what I thought the house would give me. A lot of people go into a marriage because they feel like they're going to get something out of the marriage without putting anything into the marriage because they don't know how to put something into something that they don't know the whole gist of. Okay. So yes, Sam, welcome, welcome, welcome. Andy, thank you for for inviting. I see the comments are just all over the place. So thank you guys for joining me. We are talking about marriage and how serious marriage is and how people don't understand the full depths of marriage. Okay. So let me go over here. Let me make sure I'm not losing any comments on YouTube. All right. And so they have this house and now all of a sudden they're going to sell the house, right? They're selling the house because what they thought they were getting was short lived because they did not know how to maintain the house. And because of that, now they're losing their house. And now all of a sudden, they're back to being a renter. And they're like, you know what? I don't regret 1 second of it because there were a couple times that I enjoyed the house, but there was a lot more difficulty because I didn't know how to keep up with the house, because I couldn't afford the house. The house brought me pain because now all of a sudden I'm in debt and now all of a sudden I have no place to live. And so now people feel like, okay, I got out of this marriage that they didn't know how to maintain, that they didn't know what they were getting into. So now they're single and now they have the baggage and they have the false impression of like, oh girl, don't buy a house. Don't buy it. Let me tell you how many problems I had with my house. Don't do that. No, don't do that. You're better off just renting. You're better off just dating somebody for the rest of your life, because once you get into a marriage, that's it. Now you got to do work. Now it's going to be outside of your expectations. Now they're not going to love you the way you should or the way you're expecting to be loved, right? That's not how a marriage works. Okay. Number one, a marriage is about that commitment I keep talking about. Why do I keep repeating it? Because I want you to get it. If you got it, say got it in the comments. Okay. I want you to get it. Marriage is a commitment, not just to you, not just to your spouse, not just to the family, your friends, the witnesses who are seeing you do this, but it is also to God. That is why marriage is so sacred, because you're making a vow. Do you promise to honor and uphold so and so and so till death do you part? You say, I will. And then you face your spouse. You got the horizontal vow and you're like, I vow to honor and cherish for richer or poorer, in sickness and health, to death do our part. I do. You're making two vows. So next time you go to a wedding, like peep it. You're saying two vows. One is vertical to God, one is horizontal to your spouse. That's why a marriage is so sacred, because it is a cross that forms the idea of what marriage is. And as you get into the marriage, it's not about what you get out of the marriage. It's about, number one, what God is bringing out of the marriage, as two of his people are forming into one to now create a new creation that is going to help benefit the kingdom of God. Okay. This is never just a surface based thing. Marriage is not a surface based thing, because if it was, then it wouldn't be at the beginning of time in Genesis. You know what I'm saying? And so once you have that, you have to understand that you are going to evolve. And God's love is limitless, which means the love that you are trying to portray in a marriage is a direct reflection of the limitless love that God has for each of us. And so, yes, sometimes love is going to feel sacrificial, because sometimes you're going to have to go past your pettiness and love the man that you decided to choose to love, the vow to love, right? Sometimes you're going to have to love when it's hard to love, when they're going through something, when they lost a job or they're sick. You know, have you ever been in a relationship, or maybe it was you, I don't know, I'm not going to point names, but have you ever been somewhere where somebody got sick and then all of a sudden they were just so difficult to work with? Like, you're trying to care for this person, but if they complain or whine or just get on your nerves one last time, I might just accidentally spill the soup on your lap, bro. Like, you getting on my nerves right now. And I'm doing everything in my power to bite my tongue because I know you're sick. Like, have you ever been in that situation? That's a different kind of love, right? How about the love where you got to put yourself on the back burner so that someone else can thrive? Like my husband, I can't imagine how many times my husband allowed me to sacrifice, like how he sacrificed time just so I could be in this office. You know, how he chose to watch the kids just so I could send a devotional out. You know, I'm sure he could have wanted to sleep in, he could have wanted to do things, but no, he chose to love. And if you don't know how to do that early on in your marriage, then of course it's going to look like you're not getting anything out of it. This is supposed to build you. It's supposed to make you stronger, but it's also supposed to teach you that the love God has for you is limitless. There are no depths, there are no boundaries. It is yes and all. It's something we will never fully comprehend on this side of heaven, right? And marriage is supposed to be a reflection of that. And it's hard. It's hard. Marriage is hard. Marriage is hard. But that's why there's so many levels before you say I do. Okay? So, what can you do? All right? We see this couple. I'm really sad for them. I thought they were going to make it. I followed them on Instagram. I'm probably going to unfollow them now, you know, because I have no other relationship, no reason to follow them separately. But it's a sad thing. And there's a lot of people out there who end their marriages prematurely. Okay? What can you do? You watching this, what can you do if you are thinking about marriage, or if you desire to have marriage, or if you're praying for marriage later on? What can you do? Number one, the very first thing you can choose to do for yourself is, as a single person or as somebody who is in a relationship, the number one thing you can do if you want to get married someday is you want to start learning how God's love is reflecting in your life. You need to learn God. Look in the Bible, search the word love, and just do a study on what is God's love. What does it mean to be like God's love? What does it mean to feel his love? What does it mean to receive his love? How can I practice that same kind of love, that same kind of action in my life towards other people? Okay. The second thing you want to do is you're going to prepare for marriage. Okay. So when you finally find someone and you finally start dating someone, you're like, ooh, they're cute. They got their stuff together. Ooh, they love the Lord. Praise God. You know, praise Jesus. Like, I finally found my person. You don't just get the feels and the butterflies and all of a sudden you get excited and going on dates and that's it. No, 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 no. You need to learn how to love God and love this person through God. Okay. You need to start understanding who this person is. Do they align with your values? Do they align with your intentions? Do they go after God the way you go after God? Are you guys both running towards God so that you guys can meet in the middle? Don't just go on a date and say, oh, it was fun. No, learn something about that person on a date. Every time you go on a date, it shouldn't just be to pass time. It should be to figure out whether or not this person has what it takes to love you unconditionally and whether or not you have what it takes to love that person unconditionally. It's always going to be one of those. It's like an interview process. You keep getting this person on an interview and an interview. And the more you love this person, the more you grow to appreciate this person and value this person, the more you need to be considering, can I see myself growing God's kingdom? Can I see myself loving God's way? Can I see myself being in a position where God can use us together? Are we better together for the kingdom of God than are we apart? That's what you need to be thinking about during your dating process. Okay. If you're not even sure how to do that, like, I don't even know how, I just want to go see Marvel movies, Selena. Okay. You overwhelming me right now. I don't even know what to do. I'm going to tell you, I got a book. I recently wrote a book. It's called Christian Dating Adventures. There are 65 dates in here, and every single date in here gives you discussion questions that not only help you understand each other, but it helps you understand your growing faith for God. Okay. You need to understand what the red flags are, what the green lights are. You need to constantly be in prayer to ask God, open the doors or close the doors. Open the doors or close the doors. And God will show you, because God will show up. He does not leave you nor forsake you. Okay, so the first thing, you're going to pray. You're going to understand God's love. Sing a woman's prayer book. Okay, understand who God is in your life. Understand God's love. Understand how can he love me and how can I receive that love. Number two, you're going to start dating. You're going to start understanding, what are my values? What are my expectations? How can I be the person that is ready to have a marriage? Am I ready to have a marriage? Maybe not. Maybe I need to do some work on myself. I don't know. I need to understand what marriage is before I can get there, right? I'm not just going to come out of college and buy a house if I don't know about the market, if I don't know about investments, if I don't know about how to maintain a house, home ownership, the place, the location of where I want my house to be, the school system. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's research. There's research that you got to do when you want a lifelong thing like that, right? And then once you find your person and you guys get engaged, and now you're going to go back to God together. Now you're going to pray over your stuff together. You're going to start praying about your wedding. You're going to start praying about your purpose. You're going to start praying about your relationship to each other. You're going to start understanding, okay, well, if things get hard, how are we going to work through it? If my attraction to you starts to fade, what can we do to bring the fire back? If I am struggling in my faith, what can we do as a team to make it better? You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to start asking you have to start being in a position where you are preparing for something greater, because marriage is greater than, okay? So for people who walk out of it easily, is probably because they got overwhelmed, because their expectations were not met, or because they don't know themselves enough to understand the love that was given to them. Okay? And that's why people end their marriages. I mean, beyond maybe they got abusive or had an addiction problem, beyond those things. If none of that stuff was present, those are the other reasons why somebody would bow out of a marriage. So I believe they did not sign the papers yet to get divorced. So what can we do as people who are watching this couple and this relationship unfold before our very eyes? I always tell people, I don't care if they're Hollywood or not, you can always pray for them, because they did not sign the divorce papers yet, which means God can still come and interfere and change their hearts. They can still walk away saying, hey, let's give this a shot. Let's try it again. Maybe there's something there that we missed, or hey, I renewed my heart and I feel restored and I want to fight for this. I want to fight for this marriage. I want to fight for this love. Maybe I'm going to put my stuff aside and I'm going to understand how you can do it. There is nothing wrong with getting counseling, a marriage counselor, a premarital counselor, a pre-engagement counselor. Okay. My husband and I, we got counseling before he even gave me a ring. Why? Because I was terrified of getting married. I was like, no, my parents got divorced. I'm not trying to go that route. That's not for me. Mm-mm-mm-mm. So I said, what can I do to remove that fear from my life so that I could walk in God's faith? The best thing you can do when you have fear present is to prepare yourself so that you can become confident in the moves that you're going to make moving forward. Okay? The reason why some people are fearful of things is because they're not prepared, right? So, what you have to do is you have to over prepare yourself so that the thought of failing doesn't even exist because you're so confident in the preparation that you did. Now, I'm not saying you're going to learn everything before marriage because you have to get in marriage. You have to live life in order for things to happen. But you get to a point where you're like, I'm set, I'm prepared, I'm confident, and I'm faithful that no matter what happens beyond this point, we're going to get through it. You know what I'm saying? And so that's what you need to work up to. That is your goal from single to married is I want to become so overly prepared and confident in this person, in this love, and in my faith in God that no matter what happens after we say I do, we are going to do it together. Right? I have some things here. Let's see. We need to also encourage couples therapy. Many people don't seek help. You're right. Many people don't seek help. And I don't work with men because men are wired differently. Okay. And there's a lot of ins and outs with there that I didn't personally agree, giving my advice to. But when it comes to couples, all day, all day, I will gladly coach a couple towards a confident, prepared stage of getting ready to get married. I will confidently do that because you're right. Couples need it, not just the woman, but the man, because there are things that you guys have to do together, and there are things that you have to acknowledge independently in order for it to work. And if you guys aren't working together then in those stages, then it's not going to work in the future. Selena said, do you think divorce is contagious? Like when you are around a lot of people getting divorced? I've seen this happen in families. Yes, birds of a feather flock together. Absolutely. 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 It's who your company is matters. It matters. If you are in a relationship and you are thinking about getting married, start surrounding yourself with healthy married people. Start surrounding yourself with healthy married people because when times get tough in those early stages of marriage, then who do you have to look at? You have to look at this person who's been married for 10 years, this person who's been married for 20 years, this person who's going on 50 years, talks about his wife, but man, does he love his wife and he is willing to do anything for his wife, and he must know something if they've been together happily for 50 years. You know what I'm saying? Yes, it is contagious. It's just like in the Bible verse. I'm going to chop it up and mess it up all over the place, but what you put, you have to renew your mind. So what you're putting in your mind, whether you're reading it, whether you're hearing it, whether you see it in the streets, whether it's the people around you, that's going to start to play with your mind. It's going to start to affect your psyche. And then all of a sudden, you're going to start to second guess and question and doubt, and you're going to get confused. And you're going to start to think like, did God really say that I had to be married to this person forever? Did God really say that I had to, sacrifice my own life to benefit hers? Did God really say that I had to have sex with my husband every single day? Like, he didn't say that, okay? But these are all lies. And it starts to play with your mind and it starts to play with your emotions. And so, yes, I think divorce is contagious. I mean, look around. There are Christians and non-Christians alike. Everybody's getting divorced these days because it's the easy way out and because they don't know how to work through their problems. Like Andy was saying with the counseling and with couples, they don't know how. They assume they know because they've seen enough relationships in their life, but those relationships aren't always the best. Like you said, there are people around and they just depend on that and what they've seen. And sometimes they don't know how to think differently. Sometimes they don't know how to apply things differently. There are coaching sessions that I have with women where I will just say one thing. I'll let them talk. You tell me your whole story. You vent to me and tell me how you're feeling and tell me what happened and tell me what he did and tell me what you're scared of. And I'll point out one thing. I'll be like, did you realize that you've been saying this the entire time? And it instantly gives them a fresh perspective. It instantly makes them think like, oh, snap. I have been saying that. I have been thinking that. I never considered that. Why? Because a different perspective will bring new light. You know what I'm saying? And so inviting people that are close in marriage, that love marriage, that believe in marriage, that believe in God, that believe God can do all things, that believe God can restore all things, that believe God can create new hearts and place them in you and can keep you living and breathing and create new ways out of no ways. You need people like that in your life, because that kind of inspiration, that kind of reflection will come upon you, and then it will help you see things differently to help you progress forward in your marriage. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. If there are any questions, let me know in the comments. Let me look at this question. I don't have any questions in Instagram anymore, but please continue to ask them in your comments. Continue to ask them in the Q&A if you have any. Let me check over here in YouTube. I don't have any questions here, but YouTube, feel free to ask your questions as well if you have any questions. I think this is a very serious topic. There is a reason why divorce is rampant. There is a reason why the enemy attacks relationships. There are reasons why the enemy attacks a single woman, and that is because he does not want the families to thrive. He does not want marriages to thrive. He does not want God's wholeness, God's union as man and wife, as husband and wife, to thrive. Now, if the devil is working so hard at keeping us apart, doesn't that say something? I'm just saying. Do you think sometimes church puts pressure on people to cover up instead of being real about their journeys at time? Absolutely. Absolutely. 3,000% yes. 3,000% yes. Listen, just because we are in modern days does not mean that the Pharisees are not alive and running around. Okay? There are people who will put their religious, legalistic point of views, their religious lifestyle, their man-made rules upon people, and they would rather have their egos stroked, and they would rather have their masks polished and shined for the world to see than to be real and to admit their brokenness and to confess their sins or their problems or their weakness onto God. Because when you confess your weakness to God, what happens? You're made stronger through God. It is through Christ who gives me strength. And so you would become stronger. You will be able to overcome it. But people don't want to admit their weaknesses because they think that that is the wrong thing. They think they will remain weak. They think that they will remain in this. People are going to look a certain way. Oh, they're going to think about our church. They're going to think that we're not a healthy church. They're going to think that we're not doing our job, that we're not the solution. You're right. You're not the solution. I'm not the solution. I don't have your solution. I'm trying to point you to the solution, and that's God. So yes, there are people who are like, no, no, no. We have an image to protect. We have a brand to maintain. And that brand is that God makes us look great. We're all broken people. We're all sinners. And the more you let me rephrase this. The closer we can get to creating a church that welcomes brokenness as a way to see the person in order for them to become disciples of how to be emotionally healthy Christians, the stronger the foundation of God's church and people will become. Okay? What do I mean by that? A lot of the times people go to church because they're broken and they're in need of a savior, but they don't always get those broken needs addressed because they feel ashamed. They feel embarrassed. They feel like nobody can help them. They feel like if they voice it, people are just going to say, oh, pray about it. And then they're going to go about their way. And so they're left feeling confused. They're left feeling like, I don't know what to do. And I'm just going to show up and play church. I'm just going to play church. And so they have these marriages and they're like, I'm confused in my marriage because everybody in my church is telling me that I need to stay in this marriage, even though it's not serving me and it's not helping me. And I'm being abused and I'm being assaulted and I'm being all these things in my marriage, right? That's not how God wants it. That's never what God wanted. God wanted us to seek him. He wanted us to love one another. He wanted us to serve each other. And he wanted us to confess our brokenness, to confess our weaknesses, because he is who makes us stronger. You know what I'm saying? And so, yes, I believe that there is a pressure there, but it is a man-made pressure. It is not a God-made pressure. I believe that people try to have this facade because there is a Pharisee mindset within many of the churches of today that have people backing away from Christianity and backing away from their beliefs because they feel like they can't live up to the expectations of what the church requires them to be. We are all broken individuals, and that is more the reason why we need God. And the sooner we can create the environment to welcome the brokenness and to seek God in the brokenness and to allow each other to be weak so that we can become strong, then we will grow together. Selena says, how did you work on your belief system having divorced parents? I did it out of fear, to be completely honest. So my parents got divorced when I was 8 years old. My mother was kind of in and out of church, so I knew God my whole life. I went to youth group my whole life, but I was always very broken in my relationship settings. My father, he stopped going to church. He stopped believing in God and in the faith altogether. So I always had that on one side of my life where that was getting told to me, and I always had God on the other side whispering. So it was constantly a battle, a spiritual battle between me and my faith and my walk my whole life. How did I overcome that? I always had a small sliver of faith that God was real. I always believed that God was my savior. And it was not until I was in college after a breakup that I realized I don't got nobody but God. These people aren't going to help me. If I were to ever get married, nobody would come to my wedding because I pushed everyone away. It got to the point of my life where I had no one else to turn to but God. And so from there, I decided I need to get to know God. Because if I were to die right now and I would show up at the pearly white gates and I was face to face with God, how would I feel? What would I say? How would I react? And in that moment, I told myself I would probably feel very ashamed of myself because I wouldn't have any words for God. I wouldn't know what to say. I wouldn't know how to feel. And that moment, that time when I was like maybe 23, 24, maybe 25, it was like a light that switched on in my head. And I said, I want God to be my homie. I want to give God dap. I want to give him dap, hug him. I want him to spin me around. I want to feel like he is my favorite, most comforted relative in the whole world, where I can go in there and I am just all smiles and hugs, and I know that I'm cared for, and I know that I'm protected, and I know that I'm comforted. I want to know that I could just walk up to his house at any time. You know, like when you go to grandma's house, I want to walk up into her house at any time. The door is always open. There's food always in the fridge. I want to go and share my problems and share my stories with my grandma. I wanted to have that relationship with God. I did not want to, heaven forbid something were to happen to me and then I don't know what to say or how to act to God because I never had a relationship with him. And so that is what sparked me in working up my belief system. That is what drew me into saying, I need to get to know God for myself. I need to understand who this man is as Jesus. I need to understand who this creator is as God. I need to know who this helper is as the Holy Spirit, because I would hear him, but I didn't know what to do with that. You know what I'm saying? Like there were things there. There are little crumbs here and there in my life, but I didn't know what to make of it. And I got to the point where I was just finally like, you know what? I need to figure this out. I need to understand this. because life is not promised. Relationships aren't going to fulfill you because we're all imperfect people. No matter who the person is that you fall in love with, or how much in love somebody is with you, you will never be able to fully fulfill all of their needs and fully satisfy them to all of their extents because you are lacking in something. You are not perfect. That's why we need God, because God fills in the gaps. And that is why you need God in the relationship, because God fills in the gaps of the relationship. Now that we're talking about it, I don't know their faith, of Jarrette and Iyanna from Love is Blind, but a cord of three is not easily broken. And maybe that's what was lacking. I'm not saying, I'm just saying the evidence is pretty there, is pretty much there. Unless they got like full blown verbiage from God saying you need to leave this and you need to leave it now. I don't know. That could happen too. God can do anything, really. So yeah, Selina, hopefully that answered your question. Hopefully if you're out there and you are just, in this bubble of faith where you believe God, but you don't have the relationship yet, and you don't understand why that matters or why it's so important. Hopefully this, me sharing my testimony, and hopefully us having this conversation of marriage kind of helps you understand it a little better. You know what I mean? Hopefully that helps you understand it a little better. I did not know how to pray. I did not speak in tongues. I did not even know how to worship. I was afraid to raise my hands and fist pump like a champ during worship services because I was very, very new in my relationship. Even though I went to church my whole life, I didn't know how to do those things. I didn't know how to read my Bible. I didn't know how to pray. I didn't know any of it. And so from the age of 25 kind of on up to today, to what you see today, I worked on this relationship. I dove deeper. I grew hungry. I wanted to figure it out. I attended classes and sermons and seminars and retreats and had encounters with God. And so now I'm blessed that God has given me gifts and has given me an assignment that I understand. This relationship coaching thing did not happen until I met my husband, because that was the very first relationship that I had where I chose to honor God. Every other relationship I had in the past was a faulty relationship. It was, oh, you believe in God? Oh, me too. That's great. Maybe one day when we're married, we'll go to church together. That was never going to happen because we weren't doing it together as boyfriend and girlfriend. Why would I think that would happen in our marriage? Why would I think that because I would get married, that all of a sudden our lives would change into something I was expecting it to become, when we weren't even practicing that? We were practicing nothing that was honoring God in the relationship. You know what I'm saying? So once I found my husband and marriage was becoming a question, it was becoming a thought in our heads, I instantly was like, I don't know if I can do this. And I'm afraid I'm going to mess it up because of how broken I am. And so what did I do? I started to ask God questions, and I started to say, God, you have to help me. That is where this book came out. This is literally, listen, this is my journal. This was one of my very first journals. Okay. Trust the Lord with all your heart. So pretty, right? So cute. January 3rd, 2011. Okay. This was one of my very first journals. This right here, Mis Días Sin Ti. That's what I named it. It was, this was the days without my ex-boyfriend. Okay. This was dated back to 2009. Okay. 2009, I was going through a breakup. In 2011, I started my relationship with God. These prayers in here, just written out, this is what became this. This journal is what became this book. Verbatim. The words verbatim. Okay? And that's how I learned how to pray. And the more you pray, the closer you get to God, the comfortable you get to God, the more you're able to be like, you know what? I'm going to worship him like this. I'm going to dance. I'm going to sing as loud as I can. I don't care if I'm off pitch. I'm going to do it. I'm going to dance my heart out. Why? Because now I have a relationship with God, and I understand what he took me out of, and I understand where he's taking me. You know what I'm saying? So now I can worship differently, and as you worship differently and as you pray differently, you start to surrender differently, right? You start to surrender your life a little differently. You're like, Lord, take it all, because now I trust you so fully and so faithfully that I want to be able to see what you're going to do through me. So Lord, take it. Here I am. Use me, right? So now your prayers start to get different. You start to surrender yourself a little differently. And then what happens from there? God starts to pour gifts into you. He says, you're a teacher. You're going to go out and teach. He says, you're an evangelist. You're going to go out and tell people about me. He says, you're a writer. You're going to write. Right? He says, I'm going to give you the gift of tongues because I want you to prophesy over people every time you pray over them. And that's what he did for me. Right? He started to flood me with gifts and with callings and with assignments. And so what do? You could be obedient, and follow it, even though you're kind of feared out about, you're scared about it, but you're still faithful. Or you could be like, no, that's not for me. I'm not going to do it. But you're kind of in too deep at this point because you're so in love with God and you're so trusting of God and you know that he's got your back, right? And so that's kind of how it works. That's how you build your relationship. That's how you build your. And what ends up happening, peep this. I'm gonna make it full circle right now. What ends up happening is that you're so in love with God, you trust God, you know that God's got your back, you know that he's getting ready to give you a future that has a purpose with a promise that he's going to be there for you and he's going to give you the tools and the provision and the skills necessary to fulfill that. And so what ends up happening is that you end up marrying your Savior, your God. You become the bride, right? And you become in this lifelong commitment with God to show the world what can be done by his power through his love. And that is the reflection of what marriage should be here on earth. You know what I'm saying? It all comes back full circle, but you would never get there if you were never close to the person who created the marriage in the first place. Right? Selina says, did you have that weird phase when you first got married, missing your old life, even though your new life was better, just fear of many things? I had a panic attack when I had a full blown panic attack when I first when what was it, like a month before, 2 months before we got married. I did not miss my old life because I kind of did that through my single life. Okay, when I was still single, before I met Kyle, I kind of went through that remorse phase where I was like, oh man, I don't, my friends are calling me up, telling me they're at a certain bar to go meet them. And I would just like kind of blow them off. I admit I was the one that blew them off because I was trying to change my life and I had to make different lifestyle changes. And I would tell them, I'm like, listen, I'm trying to do something different here. I can't be with you guys. Like, so yeah, I went through that phase where I was really sad. And what did I do? I would just listen to worship music. God, I trust you. That was my one prayer for years was I trust you, God. I trust you. I trust you. I trust you. I don't know what you're doing, but I trust you. That's all I could say. Sometimes in those worship sets, when you're in church and they do that was my only prayer. Lord, I trust you. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what you're doing. Lord, you know my heart. I trust you. That's all I could say. And then it stemmed from there. When I got engaged to my husband and I was moving out of my house, I was living with my uncle at the time, and we got a house a few months before we got married, and we decided that I would live in the house and I would set it up, house turned into a home. I was turning it into a home. And then the day after we got married, he would move in. So I got there and there were no lights on and I didn't know where the light switches were. Okay. And nothing was plugged in. Bunch of boxes was everywhere. The house was dark. I came in and I had a full blown panic attack, right? My husband found me balled up in the corner in the middle of the floor, in the dark. And he was like, what the heck happened? What's going on? Are you okay? And I told him, I feel like God has moved the mantle of my provision and care from my family onto you. And it freaked me out because this was God telling me one last time. Remember, I told you before you get married, there are a lot of opportunities for you to think through whether or not you want to get married, whether you want to move forward. And that's what happened to me. Was God kind of had this conversation with me when I moved into that house. And he was like, are you sure you trust me? Because if you trust me and you move the safety net of your family and you decide to marry this man. I'm going to change your life. I swear to you, this is what I heard God telling me. He's like, I'm going to change your life, but I will take care of you. I'm going to take care of you every step of the way, but you have to trust me. You have to let go of your safety net, and you have to go all in on this marriage. You have to go all in on this next chapter of your life. And that was scary as F to me, so much so that I had the panic attack, because for the first time in my life, I felt like I was walking on water. If you get that reference, okay? Because you don't know what to expect, and you're about to give your whole life. Like, I thought about it. I was like, I don't have the lights on. That's what triggered it. Was I don't know where the lights are, and I don't even know how to put the lights on because the lights are in Kyle's name. And I was like, holy snap, Kyle is paying the bills. Like, Kyle's paying the bills. Like, what if I'm hungry? Kyle's going to have to feed me. Like, he's like my parent. And I was like, oh my God, I'm freaking out because this is a man. And what about me? I got to be independent, and I got to figure this out for myself. And God was like, that's not the relationship. That's not the kind of love that I'm trying to give you here. The kind of love that I'm trying to give you here is a partnership. And it's a love that's going to elevate you, not just you yourself, but both of you together. And you have to trust me. And in order to trust me, you got to remove the safety net, and you have to walk towards me. You have to trust me fully and wholeheartedly that this marriage is going to be good for you. And so that was when I finally just like said yes. That was my final yes before I was like, okay, I'm all in. I'm going to get married. This is what it's going to be. And I'm never going to walk away from this. I'm never going to walk backwards into a state where I would be divorced, into a state where I would no longer be married to this man, because I knew that God was calling me into this direction. And if God is calling me into that direction, and if God is calling you into that direction, then you have to trust that no matter how crazy that direction gets, or how dark that direction becomes, God will have your back. God will save you. God will provide for you. God will take care of you. And a lot of times people can't be okay with that. People have a problem having faith in that. And so therefore, when they start to get a little weary, they go back to the safety net. They go back to their family. They go back to their friends. They go back to that single life. They go back to the thing that made them comfortable, and they back out of the marriage. So hopefully that answers that question. There was a fear of lots of things, but you have to make a decision. You have to choose. Only you can choose it. You have to choose to walk in faith over the fear. And if you choose that, then God is not going to let you stand in fear. He's going to wrap you with security. He's going to give you a peace that surpasses all understanding. He is going to show you through confirmation after confirmation after confirmation that you made the right choice, right? How would you ever get to that point unless you are very close to God? How are you going to get close to God unless you start to understand his love and start to receive that love for what it is, right? So it's all an intertwining circle of marriage and God and you and the man and what you choose to do and the commitment that you choose to make and uphold and all that jazz. So whew, that's how I feel. This was a great discussion, guys. Any more questions? Any more questions? Let me see. I just want to say hi to everyone that came. Miss Unique, Adamaris, Andy was here, Crystal, Leslie, V, Pixie. Thank you guys for showing up. Lady Ace, thanks for joining. Thank you guys so much for coming. Any last questions? Let me know if you have any last questions, because I'm going to get ready to wrap up. It says, I can relate to that. I got married back in May. Congratulations. May what? Because my wedding, my anniversary is May 4th. And we went through all that. It was nice to hear about it from someone else. Yes, girl, you're not alone. Definitely. A lot of people feel like they're alone. A lot of people feel like I'm in this relationship and I have to do this on my own. And if I don't, then I'm going to look dumb, or I'm going to look foolish, or people are going to say, I told you so, or, I'm going to feel like a failure. And I told you, it's when you admit the weakness, is when you confess it, that God gives you his strength. May 14th. That's cool. We were going to go for that weekend, but we knew Mother's Day weekend was always like in that second weekend, and the 14th had the potential of going into there. So we decided the 4th before. And we're not Mexican, so like Cinco de Mayo, like that whole May the 4th be with you. I guess that's fine. We both enjoy Star Wars, so we can live with that. But we knew that. And then my husband's birthday is the 3rd weekend in May. So, and then there's like Memorial Day weekend. So we were like, okay, the 1st weekend in May has to be it. Bianca, thank you for joining me. I'm getting ready to wrap up. If there's no more questions, I will gladly take your questions for another 10 minutes or so if we have any more. Tune in. Be sure to catch the replay. Again, what can you guys do for this couple, Jarrette Jones and Iyanna McNeely from Love is Blind, as we could pray for them? Like I said, God can stop anything. He can turn anything around. He can restore anything. What can you guys do for yourself? Start building your relationship with God. Start understanding what love is. Go into a deep dive of what marriage is. A really good book that I could recommend for describing what marriage is called The Meaning of Marriage. I don't really remember the author's name. The Meaning of Marriage. Let me see. And that really breaks down God's creation of marriage and how it pertains to your life. The Meaning of Marriage is by Timothy Keller. That could be a good book if you guys are newlyweds. That would be a really great book to read. Do I offer any books myself on marriages? Not really yet. Winking. Where am I winking at? Not yet. But this is a good book to help you maintain your marriage. It's called Christian Dating Adventures. So this goes for anybody who wants to go on a date. Help enhance your marriage. Help maintain your marriage through love, through building on your intimacy at all levels, not just physical, but all the levels. And this is a good book that can help you do that. You can get that in my online shop, link in bio. And that's it. So for all of you guys who are tuning in last minute, please catch the replay. And if you have questions during the replay, then put them in the comments or shoot me a DM and I'll address them, because I don't want to leave you guys in question. But if you're catching me for the first time, my name is Selina Almodovar. I'm a Christian relationship author and coach, and I help women of faith build up their relationships and their love life, so that way they can find the man and relationship that they've been praying for. I have a lot of things coming in store for you guys, community wise, support and accountability wise. So be on the lookout for that. But for today, it's Friday, and I'm just so glad that you guys joined me today on Friday. I hope that this is a part of your day that was encouraging and inspiring, and that you come back and you seek God, or you invest in your marriage, or you just do something that's going to help you feel a little bit better about yourself as we carry out the rest of this day. I know for me personally, I am going to continue working in my office for a couple more hours, and then we're going camping. If you're from the Midwest, yeah, we're going camping with all 3 of my children. Please send lots of prayers, because that's going to be interesting. Thank you so much for tuning in, for watching. I'm going to check one more time. I would hate to leave and then you guys are like, no, I had a question. All right, I'm going to take care. I hope you guys continue to do the same. Be sure to catch me in my stories, all that jazz. Thank you for the love and support. And catch the replay. Have a wonderful day. I will talk to you guys again soon, and enjoy your weekend.